body who makes the laws tells the enforcement body not to enforce the law.
Who thinks President Trump honestly wants to solve the immigration problem? All right, we got 5.
Are you investigating Comey's handling of his memos?
We are handling that referral, and we will issue a report.
There's got to begin to be some consequence to circumventing the law to do things you're not supposed to do.
The president says he will slap a 10% tax on another $200 billion worth of Chinese goods unless Beijing reverses course.
The U.S. economy continues to fire on all cylinders. Look at this. A new Gallup poll. Satisfaction with the U.S. direction now at a 12-year high.
Get it started. Get it started. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.
All right, let's get the second hour started, guys.
How musical of you.
It's 7 o'clock here on the East Coast. Good morning on this Tuesday.
Welcome aboard, folks. We got another busy 2 hours and plenty to talk about, Brian.
All right, let's begin with immigration reform because that's the top of almost everybody's agenda. The President of the United States is meeting with House Republicans today. He's got 2 plans that he wants to take a look at and say to the Republicans to their face, I'll back both of them.
This as we get a new inside look at one of the immigrant detention centers at the border.
We have dispatched our own Griff Jenkins to McAllen, Texas. He is outside one of the detention centers. He hopes to get inside one of them later today, and he joins us live. Hey, Griff.
Good morning, guys. This is one of the largest detention centers in the country. This is where the Border Patrol brings, whether you're an adult or a child, immediately here. Then adults go on to be processed by ICE. Children go with the HHS. And these photos we can show you are within this McAllen, Texas center where people have been brought. But one of the concerns as we enter this national dialogue over the humanity of how the zero tolerance policy has been carried out, the president says what he will not stand for is having migrant camps across the country. Take a listen.
The United States will not be a migrant camp, and it will not be a refugee holding facility. If the Democrats would sit down instead of obstructing, we could have something done very quickly.
Also yesterday, DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen taken to the podium in the White House briefing room to defend her administration's actions. Take a listen.
Apprehension without detention and removal is not border security. We have repeatedly called on Congress to close these loopholes.
Now, these loopholes are very important. She says there are 3. One goes back to 2008, the Trafficking Victim Prevention Act. The asylum policies need to be reformed because they say in the last decade it's been risen 1,700%, as well as the Flores Act going back to 1997. We are going to talk, guys, in the next hour with the sector chief here, Manuel Padilla. We will bring it to you live, and we will get answers. Back to you.
That's what we need. All right, Griff, thank you. So the president's going to be meeting with House Republicans tonight. He's made it very clear that he supports their immigration plans. He would like to see a bill that does protect the Dreamers. He met yesterday with Senators Shelby and Capito. I always do that wrong. Thank you. Both Republican senators. And he made it very clear he wants money to build the wall. And one of them said he is trying to get a down payment on the wall, probably in the neighborhood of $1.6 billion. But that is just barely, what, 10%, 15% of the $25 billion.
And then get a little bit more than 1.
Goodlatte has a bill that gets to 25, and I think that will be important, and also has money that they'll put aside to guarantee that'll go there. There'll be a trigger to pay for it if, in fact, they don't actually, if a Congress tries to defund it. So I just think that there's both plans. If the president says to their face, I will back both these plans, they believe it'll get out of the House, and maybe with all these senators in red states looking to get reelected, maybe they'll get up to 60 votes. But in the meantime, there's going to be a provision in one of the plans that deals with separation when it comes to the flood of illegals who are coming to our border right now. Staggering to think that there are 12,000 kids who have come to our border, 10,000 without parents. And if we don't do something to stem the tide, there are average 250 kids per day in recent weeks coming to our border. And people have the audacity to blame ICE or Border Patrol for this issue. There's got to be a solution to this issue, but they're not the bad guys.
Well, you know, no one wants these kids separated from their parents. We're all parents. Could you imagine if you're trying to give your kid a better life and then you're put in a detention center and your child is crying for you in a room full of strangers? No one wants that. We're all sympathetic to it. And I know that if you commit a crime, you still go to prison. If you robbed a bank, you're going to go to prison. You're going to be pulled away from your family. This is a little different in the fact that there is the sympathy issue. These are people coming to try to give their kids a better life, but they are the law, and we have to protect our kids too. We don't want MS-13 going across the border and coming and killing our children. So you have to, everyone wants the same thing. It's just we've got to come up with a solution. Our lawmakers in Washington, now they're holding this in their hand. The president tried to offer them an immigration bill. It even protected DACA. It protected even more than DACA, and the Democrats didn't vote for that because the president says they were obstructing. So they need to sit down together. They need to come up with a solution so these parents either stay with their kids or we send them back to their country and tell them how to come in the correct way.
Right, because there's been according to Kristen Nielsen yesterday, there's been a 325% increase in unaccompanied alien kids in this country. And Brian just pointed out, of the 12,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has in custody, 10,000 of them were brought to this country alone. In other words, somebody on the other side of our border thought, okay, the easy pass way to get into the United States is to look like we're a family.
Right.
And so they bring these kids in. And that is one of the reasons why Tom Homan, acting ICE director, says, blame the parents.
These parents themselves are using these children as pawns to gain entry in the United States, knowing that we can't detain them. And as far as the separation of families are concerned, you have to put the blame on the parents. They are choosing to enter between the ports of entry. They know they will be separated, but they want to blame the government when we were forced to do that. So let's put the blame where it lies, not on the fine men and women of the Border Patrol and ICE. We're enforcing the law.
So Senator Ted Cruz has got a plan. He saw this horror. It's at his border in Texas. He says it's called the Protect Kids and Parents Act. He's horrified by what he saw, but he understands that they're in an impossible position. It's not our fault that people are welling up at our borders. It's a series of failed states from Mexico to Honduras to El Salvador who are just saying, I have Bolivia, I have no choice. I'm coming here. So here's Senator Ted Cruz.
Too many Democrats right now in Congress are playing politics with this. They've introduced legislation where their solution is essentially to let illegal immigrants go, to go back to the failed policy of catch and release. President Obama held tens of thousands of children in detention centers who came illegally as immigrants. Now, when Obama was president, the Democrats didn't think it was a problem. You didn't see Democrats coming down there. You didn't see the news covering it around the clock. But regardless, it was a problem then. It's a problem now. Kids shouldn't be the victim of a broken illegal immigration system. We should keep children with their parents.
And so what Ted Cruz's plan is, he would ask for a lot more money to build shelters so that when families come into the country and they ask for asylum, then the parents and the children can be kept together and there would be no separation. But right now there's no money, there's no facility, and of course it's not the law.
And it takes forever for them because there's such a backlog down there because so many illegal immigrants are trying to get across our border. It's
$50,000 a month.
Yeah, I was reading that immigrants crossing the border illegally between ports of entry, so not legally, has increased fivefold. It was 14,000 4 years ago. Now it's 75,000.
All right. So let me just ask you, okay, where do these kids go? Everyone's got big hearts. Nobody wants to see anyone from any country. I don't care if it's from Canada or Iceland. They don't want to see kids separated from their parents. Nobody does. But as people come here illegally, just so you know, everybody here doing it the legal way, you're going to wait. Everyone here paying all those fees and making sure they stay out of trouble, you're going to have to step aside and let you know all those classrooms that are so crowded and all the teachers who have to buy their own supplies, it's going to get worse because what these kids do, they don't go to private school with Oprah Winfrey or other people's in rich areas. They go to working class communities that are often overtaxed and often underperforming schools, and they get flooded in there. They don't tell the mayors. They don't tell the governors. It happened already in 2011. The next thing you know, all of a sudden, why is there 45 kids in my classroom? So where are they going to go? And as Nancy Pelosi has this horrible homeless problem in San Francisco, just so you know, our heart goes out to them, but not to the people who clearly don't have enough or there's not enough shelters to build.
Well, what are we, 4 or 5 months away from an election? It's a political issue. It's up on Capitol Hill. Will Congress do anything about it? Or will they simply punt and say nope? And then will President Trump ultimately have to say to his ICE guys and Border Patrol, all right, let's back off on that? Don't know what's going to happen. Just know that it is coming to a head in our nation's capital because so many people are outraged. You hate to see those kids separated from their parents, and something has got to be done.
If they went to the port of call and they had refugee status, they would get through.
That's right.
And they'd stay together.
So if there's a good argument for a wall, it is this.
Yeah, because they'd all get siphoned into one area.
You have to go to where you can only go through the wall, and that would be at a port of entry where it is legal.
That big, beautiful door. Okay, they haven't built the wall yet, but nonetheless. All right, it's about 7:11 here in New York City, and Jillian joins us. And Jillian, it's weather time.
Yes, it is. Extreme weather. My goodness, all across the country. Let's get you caught up. Dangerous flooding turning deadly in the Midwest. A man killed when his pickup truck was swept away in Wisconsin. Incredible video showing a road completely destroyed by the storm. And a state of emergency underway in parts of Michigan. Flash floods washing away roads and causing dozens of sinkholes. More rain is on the way across the country. Right now, Kim Jong-un is in China to meet with President Xi Jinping. His motorcade driving through the streets of Beijing. The North Korean dictator is expected to brief Xi on his summit with President Trump in Singapore. It's Kim's third visit to China since March. Parents are under arrest for leaving their young children in a sweltering hot car for nearly an hour. Police say Tamisha Williams-Shaw and Aaron Robinson left their 3-year-old and 6-year-old inside a parked car outside an Arkansas Walmart. Witnesses called 911 after hearing the children screaming on the nearly 90-degree day. Police say they were red-faced and sweaty. The car was not running, and its windows were rolled up with the sunroof open. A state trooper is going viral for pulling over a slowpoke driver in the fast lane. And now everyone wants Indiana State Police Sergeant Stephen Wheels on their roads. One person asking, quote, "Can you transfer to Florida and patrol?" Another writing, quote, "Bless you, Sergeant Wheels. I hereby nominate you for the Nobel Peace Prize." Drivers in Indiana are required to move over for passing vehicles. Look at your headlines. I don't disagree with that one.
That is like one of my pet peeves.
I know. I'm like, come on.
Especially when everyone on the right in the right lane is backed up, and then there's one driver that's holding everyone up on the left side.
I know. All right,
not that we have road rage or anything.
No, not at all.
I never have the rage. It's just you just got to go. You know, you're just in a hurry.
What's taking so long up there?
All right. Thank you, Jillian. It's a video that all parents need to see. A toddler climbing a locked pool ladder. A new warning for families heading into summer.
Plus, testimony continues about the IG report on Capitol Hill. And now a new bombshell. And next week, Peter Strzok comes to town.
Living the dream and never giving up.
A tale of two separate parties and agendas. If you watched the hearings yesterday for hours, I found them endlessly interesting. For the Democrats, they were looking at a 500-page report and throwing out statements that the president has made and tried to get these two gentlemen, Chris Wray and Michael Horowitz, to refute them. For Republicans, to their credit, for the most part, they weren't pontificating. They were asking questions. Probably one of the most interesting was Senator Mike Lee. I thought he did it as a lawyer, and I thought that Grassley was strong, but Graham might have been the best.
Lindsey Graham, yeah, he confronted Horowitz about all of the bias that he read in the IG report. Listen to this.
This was an email sent in February 2016 from Page to McCabe. Hey, you've surely already considered this, but in my view, our best reason to hold the line at 2 and 2, 2 agents and 2 prosecutors, is she might be our next president. How did you feel about that?
We were concerned about it.
One of the FBI agents in the interview said on Election Day to another FBI agent, "You should know that I'm with her." Eventually, very concerned gets to be enough already. I'm glad you found what you found, Mr. Horowitz. I'm not buying that the Clinton email investigation was on the up and up.
So to recap, the Inspector General, and keep in mind his report was how the FBI handled the Hillary Clinton email investigation. You know, did they give her preference? And from hearing from Mr. Horowitz, it sounded like there was bias. Then you had Christopher Wray, the guy who runs the FBI, and he said, you know, we've made changes and things are better, and we're trying to restore the integrity and the the way people feel about the FBI. But back then in 2016, it was just a few bad actors. Unfortunately, as was pointed out by a U.S. Senator, the bad actors were the person who ran the department, the number 2 person, and the person in running the investigation.
The person involved with the special counsel, with Robert Mueller's special counsel.
Right, for a while, for a short time.
Right.
So listen, so what he's trying to say is this. You changed the words gross negligence because it's criminal. You changed the word when you talked about Hillary Clinton's actions leading up to the election when her use of a private server, because you had to drill down on intent. You inexplicably gave immunity to almost every major player. Why? Because the people in charge of the investigation know to stop Donald Trump, which they wrote about, you had to make sure that she ended up the nominee and not in legal problems. Probably because Bernie Sanders wouldn't have beat Trump. So how do you do that? You damage her because you have to be somewhat accurate in James Comey's inexplicable speech in July, but you don't eliminate her. You allow her to live another day. And we need to know the identity of the other people who said those horrific things. And next week, Peter Strzok is going to get subpoenaed today. He's going to appear next week. I don't know how he defends those texts, but he's going to be forced to.
His attorney says no need to even subpoena me, or him, because he says he'll be glad to talk. What I found interesting, too, someone else that was working on the investigation, one of those unnamed people, asked if his son could work for Hillary Clinton and the campaign.
Do you believe it?
And was giving information to John Podesta, who worked for Hillary Clinton.
So there were some great answers, or rather some great questions yesterday from both sides, but very lawyerly answers, as you would expect from the Inspector General and the FBI Director. I mean, they want to make sure everybody feels like things are on the up and up. It will be interesting to see Peter Strzok next week try to answer those hard questions like, what was the insurance policy again? Can you answer that?
I was impressed with Horowitz. I was not impressed with Chris Wray, who was just trying to turn the page. Not yet.
Well, that's his job, because things are messed up at the FBI.
Well, he should be more outraged than anybody else, because it's his agency that's being defiled.
All right, coming up, Mark Sanford took on President Trump and lost his job in the Congress. What does this signal for Republicans heading into the midterms? Kate Arrington, the woman who beat him, joins us next. Come on in.
First, 40 million. That is the overall enrollment in food stamps, an 8-year low. The USDA says the decline during the month of March is due to the booming economy and a crackdown on fraud in the SNAP program. Next, listen to this, 10%. That is how many millennials don't leave tips at restaurants. That's according to a new creditcard.com survey. 1 in 3 millennials said that they leave a less than 15% tip. Come on, be generous, guys. And finally, number 1, that is where Hawaiian Airlines ranks for on-time flights. According to the Department of Transportation, 87% of flights arrive to the gate when expected. Steve?
Thank you very much, Ainsley. A last-minute endorsement on Election Day by primary day, that is to say, by President Trump on Twitter pushed our next guest across the primary finish line in the great state of South Carolina. Katie Arrington crediting the Trump bump as she won 50.6% of the vote, narrowly beating Mark Sanford, a sitting congressman, in his first election loss ever. So what could it signal for the midterms? Let's talk to Republican South Carolina congressional nominee Katie Arrington, who joins us live here in New York. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so it is, let's go back a couple of weeks. It was it a couple of weeks already?
It was last week.
It
wow,
was last
time
week.
flies.
Tell me about it. Okay, so last Tuesday, late in the day, out of nowhere, the President of the United States tweets, don't vote for Mark Sanford because Mark Sanford has not cooperated with the president. Vote for you.
Yes, at 4 p.m. and it was amazing. It definitely kept us from a runoff. In South Carolina, we had a Democrat who wanted to try a science experiment and ran on the Republican ticket. So there were 3 of us. And I'm sure President Trump's tweet kept us out of a runoff.
And you had to get to 50%?
50 plus 1.
Okay, well, you did that by a little extra. What was it about Mark Sanford that the president did not like and wanted to campaign against?
Well, it's on what Mark stood for. And he would go on TV, CNN especially, and bash the president the morning after Congressman.
A Republican.
The morning after Steve Scalise was shot, he got on CNN to say that the president was culpable. He repeatedly went to the media to say that he thought the president was stupid or arrogant. And then, of all the people in the world to comment about the story, Stormy Daniels, just Mark Sanford is not the guy to do that. And South Carolina was ready for a change. It was something that we needed. It was something that they've looked at, and they just, I knocked on thousands of doors, and people said it's time for a change.
Okay, and you are unlike Mark Sanford because he was running away from President Trump, and you were running toward him.
Absolutely. I think that our president right now is doing a phenomenal job. I think that the conservative values that he stands for, he is a president with a backbone, and he's willing to say, stand up, this is America first. We need to take care of home. We need to get our economy moving. We need to make sure our defense is stronger than it's been in decades, which it is. There isn't, much. I don't appreciate what the president's doing.
Katie, what do you think about his immigration policy right now? It's zero tolerance. If you try to break the law and come into the country illegally, you're going to get locked up.
So it has,
or separated from your children.
But it's been the same thing. I mean, we went through the same thing in the summer of 2014. It's Congress, career politicians have not solved this problem. It's not the president's job. That is Congress's job, and they need to get the job done. DACA happened because Congress couldn't get anything done. 2014, you go back and you look at virtually every 4 years, we have the same predicament happening. It gets a moment, it gets a summertime flurry, and then it goes to the side. I believe in the summer of 2014, we had 40,000 children in the same predicament. Where were these Democrats crying at that point? Let's fix the problem. This has been a challenge, and we have a president who's saying now, let's fix the problem.
You've seen the mainstream media reports that there's going to be a blue wave, although there was in November. There was a story out today, I believe, on CNBC about how Goldman Sachs was predicting whatever advantage the Democrats had over the Republicans, they've lost it by half.
Yes, there's no blue wave washing on the shores of South Carolina. We are a strong red state. We believe in the conservative values that President Trump has, and overwhelmingly you saw that in this past primary season, without a doubt.
All right. Katie Arrington, she's the Republican congressional nominee from one of the districts down in the great state of South Carolina. Katie, nice to hear your story.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you. All right. Meanwhile, Democrats like Nancy Pelosi are calling on the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen to quit over the immigration crisis. Her response? Do your job.
That is a very cowardly response. It's clearly within their power to make the laws and change the laws. They should do so.
She's talking about Congress. White House Strategic Communications Director Mercedes Schlapp is going to join us live from the White House next. And it's a video every parent needs to see. That is a pool ladder to keep your kids from getting in the pool. Look there. It's not working. We've got a new warning.
Who selectively use the Bible to justify this cruelty are ignoring a central tenet of Christianity. Jesus said, "Suffer the little children unto me." He did not say, "Let the children suffer."
We are operating with a white nationalist government that will take children hostage to get what they want.
All I can say after talking to the people, watching the people, listening to the people, that the Statue of Liberty, I think, is weeping right now.
Well, there you go. Some of the mainstream reaction to what's going on with the administration. Let's go to somebody who is a spokesperson for the administration, Mercedes Schlapp, White House Senior Communications Advisor. She joins us from the North Lawn. Mercedes, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, so for the many people who are watching right now, and they've heard these stories, these heart-wrenching stories about children who are separated from their parents when they try to come in the country illegally. What would you like people to know about that? Because we're looking to Washington for answers, and right now it doesn't look like anything's happening.
Well, first of all, I know you played Hillary Clinton's piece in the beginning, and in 2014 in a CNN interview, she basically said, quote, "Just because your child gets across the border doesn't mean your child gets to stay." And she pushed for border security. And now all of a sudden, these Democrats want to use this issue of immigration as a emotional, divisive, political play as they're entering into the midterm elections, which is incredibly irresponsible. President Trump since last year has been proposing real immigration reform, that will close the legal loopholes, that will end these family separations, that would ensure that we secure our border. There's two messages here. The message of the Democrats pushing forward open borders and amnesty. These individuals who come into the country based on our laws are basically released in 20 days, those unaccompanied children. So it really becomes a challenge when you see what's happening in that sense. And so what DHS is simply doing, what the Department of Homeland Security is simply doing, is ensuring that we are enforcing the law. If we want to see significant change, we need to close those legal loopholes so that we are able to detain and swiftly remove these family units who are coming in illegally.
You know, but aren't we going to? I understand you using the Hillary Clinton references. Many people in our country felt the same way she did back then. But now, no matter what their motives are, Mercedes, if it is for the midterm elections, those images are out there now of parents being separated from their kids. And you're right, Congress has to do something about this. It's really not up to an administration. But what are the solutions so that the parents can stay with their kids?
Well, what's also heartbreaking is to watch those families who have lost loved ones because of MS-13 members who have used the loopholes and have come through this country and have killed not all Americans, Latinos, African Americans, individuals here in the United States. So let's talk about these heartbreaking stories. We have to understand that these families that are separated, it is for a limited period of time, between 5 to 10 days. It is because if you come in and cross the border, it is a crime. And so the illegal immigrant who's the adult will have to be prosecuted. This happens in our current criminal system, which is if an American commits a crime, they are going to be separated from their children. It is incredibly heartbreaking, but it is the law and it is the reality that we have. And we can solve this problem of family separation if we close these legal loopholes. And that means Democrats coming on board. Right now, this week, we have 2 House bills going through Congress. This is an opportunity that would close these legal loopholes as well as secure the border wall funding and also take care of the DACA issue. The president has come up with a very strong compromise when it comes to this issue and a generous one in terms of immigration reform. And it's time for the Democrats to come to the table and let's just resolve this immigration problem that we're having, as well as close these legal loopholes, this catch and release that will allow us to detain and swiftly remove these individuals and these families that have come and crossed the border illegally.
Mercedes, the Secretary of Homeland Security answered every question yesterday very directly. He obviously knows the issue. However, in the big picture now, there's a little bit of a discrepancy between what the Attorney General says and the Homeland Security Secretary says. Does the administration want word to get out to these Central and South American countries that if you come here, you're not going to get in, and there is going to be separation in the hope of making it a deterrent? The Homeland Security Secretary says, no, it's not. The Attorney General says, yes, it is. What is it?
Look, I think at the end of the day, it's very clear that these smugglers, for example, know exactly what the business model is. And their business model is if they're able to bring these children across the border, that these individuals will then be quickly released in 20 days. So I think it's a bigger and broader message, which is that clearly that we are simply enforcing the law. And that law is if you come in as an illegal adult, you will be prosecuted as a criminal. I mean, there is no question. You will get a misdemeanor. If you come in a second time, it'll be a felony. If you come in a third time, you'll serve jail time. This is clearly the broad message that we're putting out there, that is what we're doing, which is clearly enforcing the law at this point and asking for real reform, which is that closing the legal loopholes to ensure that that we are able to detain and remove these families. Right now, our hands are tied and our agents can't do their job effectively. And on top of this, we're also ensuring the safety and security of these children that are crossing the border. There are so many instances where you have these smugglers bringing in these children. There's been a 315% increase from October to February, where you've had these illegal immigrants basically fraudulently using children to pose as a family unit. That is just outrageous and needs to be stopped. And these children, our key is to make sure that these children are kept in a safe environment, which is what we're doing when they move over and are taken care of by the HHS officials.
All right, exit question, just a yes or no answer, Mercedes. Does something pass Congress?
You know, I know that the president is going to be meeting with the House conference members today. I think that there is definitely at this moment we want this bill to move forward and pass the House. This is going to take extra effort, and it's going to take working together with the Democrats. So let's have the Democrats come on board.
Okay.
Let's make sure we secure the border, as Hillary Clinton once said in 2014. Let's make sure we secure the border. And what I can assure you is that President Trump, he cares about these children. He's concerned about the safety of these children. At the same time, this is a question about enforcing the law, and that is what we're doing right now.
Right, and the president backs both bills, right, in the House?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
He backs both the Goodlatte bill and the compromise bill.
Thanks so much, Mercedes.
Thank you.
Good to see you. I think there's so much pressure on Democrats and Republicans. I think the answer to that is yes.
Those images are terrible.
They are.
You know, the little kid crying, all those crying kids.
I think this pressure
it's heartbreaking optics.
More on Republicans than Democrats. I think they're happy to think that President Trump is paying a price for this. Meanwhile, 20 minutes before the top of the hour, Jillian, you have the news.
Yes, I do, and an incredible story. So let's go ahead and get you caught up, starting with this. A teen who was believed to be dead starts breathing again after paramedics lay a sheet over him. Witnesses alerting first responders who were treating other victims in Chicago.
They saw movement underneath the sheet. Officers who were present notified the paramedics. This man is still alive.
The teen now in critical condition after being shot in the head. At least 9 people were killed and 45 others hurt in shootings in Chicago over the weekend. Actress Heather Locklear reportedly hospitalized for a psych evaluation after threatening to kill herself. According to TMZ, her mother called 911 claiming she was trying to find a gun to shoot herself. The 56-year-old was arrested back in February for felony domestic violence against her boyfriend. She allegedly threatened to shoot officers if they returned to her home in California. A concerned father sharing video of his toddler climbing a locked pool ladder.
All right, honey.
Well, that's exactly what the ladder is supposed to prevent. The Massachusetts dad joking about the 2-year-old boy's upper body strength while reminding parents to keep an eye on their kids around pools. Yikes. That's scary.
I was wondering, where are the parents when we were showing that video in the teases? But that explains that he was still recording it when he said to his wife, okay, honey, now you can go get the baby. Probably they're going to send it to the company and say, you need to change this.
If you've got one of those pool guards, just keep an eye on things. All right, it is 18 minutes before the top of the hour. Janice Dean is outside where, Janice, it is still warm.
It is. Current conditions. Where are you from? What are your names?
I'm Emily Lovegrove, and I'm from Greenville, South Carolina.
What are the current conditions here in New York?
Well, it's kind of rainy and pretty humid.
Okay, very good, very good. And over here, what's your favorite part of New York so far?
Being on Fox and Friends.
Oh, I love it. Let's take a look at the maps real quick. That wasn't planned at all, by the way. 70 degrees, 78 here in New York. It is humid, my friend, absolutely. 64 in Chicago. We do have a cold front moving through, and with that cold front, that stationary front, we have the potential for heavy rain in the forecast, not only for the Great Lakes, but also down south. All right, wave to everybody at home. We love Fox and Friends, right? Yay.
Say hey to our South Carolina friends out there, Janice.
That's right, South Carolina
She's so
over here.
cute. Yeah, she did a good job.
Tennessee governor.
Woohoo!
Thank you very much.
All right, President Trump promised it. Listen.
We will make America great again.
Now, a new poll shows Americans think the president is delivering. So how long can the left deny the numbers? We're going to debate that next.
Plus, would you want to know when you're going to die if you could? Google wants to tell you. All right, you got a brand new poll revealing Americans satisfied with the country's direction, now at 38%, a 12-year high. But will President Trump's economy and policies get the credit or just be casual, somebody who's there along for the ride? Here to debate it is RNC spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany and Johns Hopkins University professor and political commentator Wendy Osefo. Wendy, those numbers are strong, and if it's the economy stupid, does the president get credit?
Yeah, he can get credit, but we have to look at this in context, Brian. What we know from this poll is that out of all of the registered voters we have in this country, the poll only examined 1,500 people. So it's kind of skewed, and as a researcher and as a professor, I would say it's not statistically significant.
Right.
But what we do know here is that what I found very interesting is that of those individuals who said that this is satisfactory, only 13% of them were Democrats. And that is what we need to focus on, because we want a president who is not divisive. who, when we say satisfaction guaranteed, we mean that for both people on both sides of the aisle. So again, I think if we look at this, it's great that he's able to have that poll number. But again, let's make sure that we are inclusive of all parties.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point. Independence is something the president shoots for, but maybe a greater effort to get Democrats. Economic numbers are pretty strong. 3.8% unemployment, stunning. 223,000 jobs added, and a 62.7% labor participation rate could be better. But Kayleigh, the numbers are strong. The president's still under 50, but getting closer in terms of approval.
Oh, it's huge, and Democrats are running scared from those numbers you just saw up on the screen, and they should be for good reason. You know, this president, his economic successes are expanding his base, and let me tell you some underreported numbers. I think this is one of the underreported stories of the Trump presidency so far, in fact, and that's millennials, Brian. A Zogby poll said he had 50% support among millennials. That's extraordinary for a Republican president. A CNN poll showed a 10% shift in millennials toward the president. And why, you ask? Because this generation's been shut out of the job market. And another poll, Reuters poll, showed a 12% shift toward trusting Republicans on the economy. Democrats need to be scared because those numbers are guaranteeing him a second term.
And Wendy, real quick, if immigration is a bipartisan solution, do you think Democrats would be afraid of giving him that, even though it would be good for the country?
We're not going to give him anything because he's the president and he needs to have a seat at the table in this conversation. What we know is that there's children being held in cages. What we know is that this is not a law, it's a policy. Excuse me, let me finish. That this is a policy, and the Trump administration has every power right now, if he wants to stop what's going on.
10-second answer, Kayleigh. We're just running out of question, Wendy. Kayleigh, real quick, 10-second answer.
When he's stopping disingenuous.
Don't tell me what to stop doing, Kayleigh.
Wait, I let you talk. Those cage pictures came from the Obama administration.
No, they're from the U.S. government.
This president's winning and succeeding. You guys are desperate.
All right, we're
not desperate. We're winning.
We'll see how this ends. 5 stories a day we're looking at, major stories. Meanwhile, in just a few hours, Michael Horowitz and Christopher Wray will be back on the hot seat in front of 70 lawmakers. Congressman Mark Meadows will be there, has a lot of questions. He promises to tell us what he's going to say next. Plus, Google is working on a new program to predict when you will die. Should the search giant really be playing God?
If you could find out that information, well, Google now wants to make it a reality. Its new algorithm claiming to be 95% accurate when predicting if a patient is going to die within 24 hours of being admitted into the hospital versus 86% accuracy in traditional methods. Family medicine physician Dr. Mikhail Varshavsky joins us now, also known as Dr. Mike, which is easier. I'll go with that. Dr. Mike, thanks for joining us. Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it depends how you look at it. First of all, data in hospitals has been tremendously underutilized. We're literally in the dark ages because half of our information is on paper, half of it is on systems that don't talk to each other. So what my patient experiences in one hospital, what tests they undergo, that doesn't always come back to me. And there's a lot of duplicates. So there's a lot of bad mistakes happening simply because data is not connected. So I'm glad Google's making an effort to try and connect some of that data. The thing that's worrying for me is what happens with this data and who owns this data. Patients' health information is a protected asset, and that's really important. And on top of that, what you do with that information matters. I hope, as a doctor, that these companies use the information that they get to benefit patients and not just the companies themselves.
What worries me is if your mom had some sort of an illness, she goes to the hospital and they say she has Google says she has a 5% chance of survival. Are the doctors going to focus more on other patients because they don't think she's going to live?
Well, you're talking about triage, and hopefully we're never in a situation where we have to make those kind of calls. What's important is that when this algorithm spits out a decision and saying, well, this person has only a 10% chance to live, I want to know why it's making that decision. And then that decision needs to be evaluated by a human being, because machines make mistakes, and sometimes they make mistakes based on faulty data. When I look through a patient's chart right now, they're a mess. I have diagnoses that have been resolved 10 years prior, and they just carry over because of the electronic health records. And I don't want the machine trying to make a decision on the patient's life when it's not accurate. So there needs to be human oversight of what these machines do. And the fear that AI is going to replace physicians is not coming anytime soon, because medicine is really as much much as it is a science,
Right.
it's an art.
Well, don't doctors do that anyway? I mean, if someone comes in with a car accident and something major has happened, aren't they already triaging in their mind? Aren't they saying the chances of survival, maybe not so good, but I'm still going to try?
That's why hearing that Google is getting better results with these percentages, 96 versus 86%, whatever the numbers were, it doesn't really change my management, right? So yes, for insurance companies, maybe there is some importance there. But the way that I look at it is I take a patient that has pneumonia, right? And I look at them and I say, well, do they have to be hospitalized? Having some data from a program like Google to tell me, well, you know, if you hospitalize them, you increase their rate of getting an infection by X percentage. But if you send them home, they can do just as well, and the percentages show that they can flourish at home on oral antibiotics.
Yeah.
That kind of information is crucial for me as a doctor to make better decisions for my patients.
What type of doctor are you?
Family medicine.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
being here, and thank you for what you do. Doctors are so special. All right, James Comey admitted under oath to leaking memos about his meeting with President Trump, and now the DOJ is investigating him for possible crimes. How much trouble is he really going to be in? Plus, it's the basketball game that everyone's talking about. Ted Cruz beating Jimmy Kimmel one-on-one, and we have the highlights coming up next.